Hey everybody, welcome to Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. This is episode number 206 of our YouTube channel and podcast, and I cannot be more excited to continue sharing with you guys personal finance topics that I think could be useful for you in your long-term financial journey. Today, we are going to be talking about inheritances, and specifically the do's and don'ts of inheritances if you are to receive them. Now, we'll talk a little bit about leaving inheritances and what's important there, but that's going to be a big overarching idea of this week, is leaving something behind for those behind you and just leaving a financial legacy, and then what you should do with a financial legacy if one is left behind for you. And so I think these are very important topics, especially for those who want to build something for their family. And assuredly, if you're watching this episode, you're watching this video, you want to do something responsible financially over the long term. So hopefully this can help you all, whether or not you're on the giving or receiving end of an inheritance. Before we get started though, if you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to respond to anything you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, be sure to subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you to create a financial plan that is specific to you and your family's needs and keep you accountable to that plan over the long term, then I can do that. Just go to my website, www.mnowithdylan.com. Click on the Work with Dylan tab, and you can choose the financial coaching session type that would work best for you, and we can begin pushing towards your long-term financial goals together. Now, many of you out there may have, turned on this video and heard that I was going to talk about inheritances and then just thought to themselves, well, I'm not going to receive an inheritance. How is this going to help me? Well, this can definitely help you in your planning to leave an inheritance behind for someone else. And it can also just better inform you as to how these types of things should be dealt with and how you can teach your children and grandchildren and people who are going to inherit what you leave behind to them, how they can do the best with the money that is being left behind and exactly what the do's and don'ts are. Now, a lot of people aren't going to receive any type of major financial inheritance, and that's perfectly fine. But if you are somebody who has the drive and has the willingness to make sacrifices financially in order to build something financially, to build financial freedom out of nothing, right? And be the first in your family that can leave an inheritance to someone. This information is very, very important to know because it's not stuff that is commonly talked about. Because so few people actually receive anything of means, right? Then very few people actually know what the rules are. They actually know what the do's and don'ts are. They actually know where you can, misstep or where you can, do the right thing when it comes to receiving something from someone else in the form of an inheritance, right? And if you don't know, then, you have to go learn and you have to find the resources, and hopefully I can provide that for you in today's episode. But what I first want to talk about is just inheritances in general in the United States. Like I said, a lot of people do not receive inheritances, but what are the averages? What does this actually look like in practice? Well, different studies suggest different levels of average inheritance. According to a 2015 HSBC survey, American retirees expect to leave an average inheritance of almost $177,000 to their heirs. But the Survey of Consumer Finances, SCF, reported that the median inheritance was $69,000 and the average was $707,291. So that's a big disparity between the one survey and the other. And so this kind of leaves us in a place where we don't really know what the average or the median is in a true way. And that Survey of Consumer Finances survey, they found that for trust funds, the median wealth transfer was way, way higher, $285,000, and the average was over $4 million left behind to the heirs of that estate. In a new study by United Income, CEO Matt Fellows looked into how retirees feel and how their spending levels change during retirement, and found that the average retired adult who dies in their 60s leaves behind $296,000 in net wealth, right? $313,000 in their 70s, $315,000 in their 80s, and $283,000 in their 90s. So we're thinking it's somewhere in the $200,000, $300,000 range is the average inheritance that is left behind. Now, again, averages like this are very tricky. When people quote averages, you always need to ask yourself, are there outliers that are impacting that average? And undoubtedly, when it comes to inheritance, there are outliers that are impacting that average. The highest of all inheritances, right, is really pushing that number upward because there are likely a bunch of people clustered at zero, right? There are a bunch of people who receive absolutely nothing or leave absolutely nothing behind to their family members or their friends or whomever. But the upside of an inheritance is unlimited. And there are people who are leaving millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions behind in the most extreme cases. And what's happening there is that is skewing the results upward. So the median is probably far more indicative of what's actually going on. But I would be interested to know how many people actually receive zero, but we just do not know. Now, if you're somebody who is leaving behind an inheritance or is leaving behind money for your family members, do not feel bad if you're leaving behind less than average. Okay, at least you're leaving something behind and you made some kind of difference financially in someone's life. Again, while it appears that the average inheritance is very high, medians are probably more indicative. Okay, when you break down average inheritance by the economic status of the household, the numbers look very, very different from the averages that we just talked about. The least wealthy group of families have received on average $6,100 in inheritance. Okay, now that $6,100 could come in any number of ways, not just in the form of cash, not just in the form of investments. It could be, properties or whatever else. But like I said, the vast majority of people, when it comes to one amount versus another, the majority are going to receive zero. Okay, now the wealthiest 1% of families have received on average $2.7 million in inheritance. Now, this is somewhere that we want to be. We want to be in a position where we can leave behind that much in the form of an inheritance, but that's what skews the number upward. Now, a further breakdown of these numbers reveals that the wealthiest 1% of families have inherited $447 for every $1 the least wealthy group of families has. Those in the middling wealth ranges, $25,000 to $50,000, $50,000 to $100,000, and $100,000 to $250,000, have received inheritances of $14.8 thousand, $22.5 thousand, and $51.4 thousand, respectively. Now, again, these aren't huge numbers or gigantic blowout numbers as far as inheritances go. But what we have to understand is just because this is average and that this is normal does not mean that this has to be the realized actual thing that we are going to do, right? We can do something that is very, very different, and we can leave a very, very different legacy behind for our children, okay? Now, you obviously don't have to leave an inheritance behind for your children, okay? But you should be able to build wealth to do things for the people that you want to do things for, whether it is once you have passed away or while you are still alive, right? You can enjoy the money that you have while you're still alive and give people the gifts that you want to give them and do the things for them that you want to do for them while you're still alive, and then maybe give the money that you're going to leave behind to charity or some cause that you want to support upon your death, right? You can do many, many things with your money, but the key is we want to build financial freedom to where we can be sustained on our money, and then when we pass away, we will still have money left, plenty of money left, hopefully. Hopefully we're just living off of the income that our nest egg creates and not digging too far into the principle of our nest egg. And then what we can actually do is give that money, or we can allow our heirs to take that money on and give them a better start, or really speed up the momentum that they have in their life financially, okay? So those are some things about inheritances, some thoughts that I have. But let's talk about what we came here to talk about today, and that is the do's and don'ts of receiving an inheritance. So if you are going to receive an inheritance, right, then you need to understand these do's and don'ts, and this will better help you to be in a place where you do the right things, right? And I'm not going to tell you what to spend an inheritance on. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do, but I'm going to tell you things that people over a long period of time have realized that this is a smart thing to do when receiving an inheritance, or this is a dumb thing to do when receiving an inheritance, and this can better inform you as to how to be a good steward of the money that you are left to manage. Okay, it is not easy to receive an inheritance, and most inheritances get blown, right? Most inheritances are gone within a couple of years, or less than that even, right? They're just gone in a flash. And whoever left you behind some amount of money, whether it's substantial or not, did not leave it to you in order for you to just blow it. They want you to be a financially free, a financially stable person. They wanted to help you with the money that they left you, and going out and blowing it is just not the way to go. But we'll get into that more as we talk about the do's and don'ts of receiving an inheritance, okay? So let's start with the do's. Okay, the first do of receiving an inheritance is take a breather. Okay, inheritances are the result of transitions, which can be stressful under the best of circumstances and devastating under the worst. Right? A lot of inheritances are coming along because somebody you really, really cared about or really loved or really had a strong heart for has now passed away. Right? And now that that has occurred, there are big changes in your life possibly, right? And like I said, there may be something devastating that occurred. You didn't see this coming. You didn't see this change coming. And now you're receiving this money, right? You need to take a breather. Sometimes the best thing to do with an inheritance is absolutely nothing. Impulse purchases are extremely common. That's why I was saying a lot of people end up blowing the inheritance that they receive in a very, very short period of time. And these impulse purchases can hit epic proportions faster than anyone expected. Once you've had a cool down period, it's recommended that you list out the priorities when it comes to long-term financial goals, right? So you want to take a minute. Take a minute and make sure that emotionally you are mature enough and you are prepared enough to deal with the money that you have been left. Because if you're not in a place where you feel stable, and you're not in a place where your emotions aren't going to get the better of you, right? Then your ability to manage money in a logical way, in a way that is not overly emotional, is going to be limited, right? So we want to make sure that we can manage this money that is left to us in the best way possible, right? So you need to take a breather. You need to just chill out for a minute and then write down the things financially that you want to do. Write down what your goals are, right? If you're following the financial action plan, then you can jump into the goals of the financial action plan, but maybe you have more specific money goals and financial goals for yourself and your family, and you can write those things down and work right down the list in figuring out exactly what you want to do with the money that was left with you to honor the person or the people who left that money behind to you in the best way possible. Okay, so you really need to make sure that you can take a breather and realize whether or not you are in the place to manage this money properly before you ever do a thing. Okay. Then the second thing that we want to do if we receive an inheritance is plan for emergencies. Okay, I put it right there in the financial action plan. It's the second part of the financial action plan, and it is the fifth part of the financial action plan. When I tell you, you need to start with 1 month of expenses when it comes to emergencies, right? You need an emergency fund of 1 month of expenses. And then once you're out of debt and you've taken your employer match and you get right before you're going to invest heavily, what you need to do is you need to have 4 to 6 months of household expenses in an emergency fund laid out for you and your family. And this is a very, very important step. It's a very, very important thing that you have emergencies taken care of, because if you build your financial house, right, your financial life on not having money set aside for emergencies or not having money set aside for things that are unforeseen, right? If something unforeseen comes, then you're going to be blindsided. And I don't want you to be blindsided by things that could have easily been planned for. Now, you can't plan for the worst of everything. That's why I give you the outline of 4 to 6 months of household expenses. So if you lose a job, well, then you can live on your emergency fund for some period of time. And obviously, if you lose a job, then you'll be really tightening your expenses and really living on a bare bones budget, right? And if you're doing that, right, then 4 to 6 months should be a reasonable amount of time to get a new job and be able to take care of that. Or if you get sick or something happens medically, right, you can cover most things with 4 to 6 months of household expenses. Now, not everything. There are extreme things that do occur, right? But we want you to be prepared for things that could occur. And if you receive an inheritance, some windfall of money, and you don't have money set aside for emergencies, you need to make sure that this is at the top of your priority list. Right now, I tell you when it comes to the financial action plan where it should fall as far as financial priorities go. Right. But regardless, you need to make sure that this money goes towards emergencies in some way, shape, or form, because the first part of the financial action plan is just to create a unique monthly budget, which doesn't cost you a thing. Right. But then the second part is immediately having 1 month worth of expenses set aside into an emergency fund. And so that 1 month of expenses can come from whatever inheritance you have. And then the third part is taking your employer match in a 401k, 403b employer sponsored retirement account And then it gets to the fourth part, which is paying off debt, which we will get to in just a moment. But I want to just sit here for just a second and tell you, if you do not have money set aside for emergencies and somebody leaves money behind for you, right, then use that money to set aside for emergencies. You can absolutely maximize what they have given you by just having a safety net, by just having money there to make you more financially stable than you were before. It cannot be understated how nice it is to have some savings, to have some money there that you know nobody can take away from you, and you know that if something negative were to happen, then you can take care of that negative thing and not be financially tight or financially constrained by whatever negative thing may occur. Okay, so get that emergency fund set up, plan for emergencies, and then you can move on into the place where you are paying off debt, like I just said. Now, obviously, in the course of the financial action plan, it makes sense why I'm telling you here, let's pay off debt, right? Let's get to a point where we are paying off all of our consumer debt. It makes absolute sense just chronologically in the financial action plan. But more importantly, what we want to do is we want to use the inheritance that somebody gives us to honor that person, right? We want to use the inheritance that somebody gives us to make the best financial choices that are going to further our financial lives as much as possible. And if we just go out and blow it and we buy depreciating assets like cars or handbags, or we go on shopping sprees for clothes and shoes and all these different types of things, which in and of themselves are not bad things, right? But if you don't have your financial house together already, then they can really create a financial house of cards for you, right? You can be in a place where, yeah, you have some of these nice things, but you didn't make any financial progress. You haven't addressed the problems that you have in your life financially. And one of the biggest problems that we have in our financial lives is debt. And if you come across a windfall of money in the form of an inheritance, and you can use that money in order to pay off the debt that you have outstanding, right? Then you don't even have to use your own money. Right? You can use somebody else's money that maybe you didn't even expect to receive or didn't even know how much it was, and you received it, and you can use that money in order to pay off your debt and be in the exact same spot, if not a better spot than you were in previously, but be in that spot with no debt, which puts you in an automatically better spot. And then you can start to maximize on your financial life and not go back into debt any longer, right? Now, if you do use an inheritance to pay off debt, which I'm telling you here, it's a good idea to do, right? It's not cheating, but it kind of feels like cheating. It feels like you didn't quite take responsibility for your debts. Okay, so you have to understand, if you go into this place where, yeah, I'm going to pay off my debts with the inheritance that I received, you have to make the mental shift where you're saying, okay, regardless of if it's my money or not that pays off these debts, I am not going back into debt. I am not going to allow myself to go back into this place where I am deeply in debt and have to, sign car notes, and I have to pay these credit card bills and these medical bills and all these different things that are just weighing me down, these student loan payments. I'm not going to go back into debt, right? Because if you receive an inheritance and you do use somebody else's money to pay off your debt, right, you can feel like it's just really easy to get right back into debt because you didn't have to feel the pain and the friction that comes with paying off debt, right? But paying off debt is so huge, and it can really free up the cash flow of your income and the rest of the inheritance that you do have in order for you to live a more financially free life. So pay off your debt. It is absolutely huge and vital to your financial success. Then the last do that I want to put out there for you is if it is a substantial amount of money, and substantial can mean different things to different people, right? But if it is a substantial amount of money to you, right, and you don't quite know exactly how to handle it, get a team of people around you that can help you. Right? Now, I can help people doing financial planning things, and I can help you to budget your money and your income better and allocate money better. And I can teach you and really help you to understand the intricacies of finance and economics a lot better. Right? But maybe you need people around you that can help you with insurance, right? Because if you're left a large amount of money, then having the right insurances in place is a huge deal, right? If you don't know anything about investments, having somebody who is an investment advisor representative help you to learn and invest your money can be really useful. Now, I've talked before about investment advisor representatives and why I think that they can be useful, right? But more than anything, you need to gain education. If it's a large amount of money and you are not financially stable already and don't know the things about finance that you need to know already, right? After you've taken care of these first three things, right? Where you've taken a breather, you've chilled out, you know your financial goals, you've planned for emergencies, you're paid off your debt, right? Now you're in a place where maybe you still got a lot of money still sitting around and you don't know really what to do with it. Get the right people around you to teach you and help guide you in the right way. Now, don't be spending exorbitant amounts of money or exorbitant fees, or don't just, write a check to let people take care of your money without you actually being in control. You need to go learn. You need to gain education. And guess what? A lot of education can be gained in places like this, on YouTube or on a podcast, right? You can gain a lot of education in these places. And that's what I'm here for every day, is to try to help you in that educational aspect of your financial life, to where you don't have to go places and not know what people are talking about. You can already have a good idea as to what your plan is, and you can just work the plan and go right down step by step, okay? So those are all the do's that I have for you. Now, there are probably other things that you could do with the money in an inheritance, investing it, right? But that will come after those big do's that everybody needs to make sure that they do. Okay. Now, if you have money left over after that, obviously investing it and letting it grow for you and building a good, financial nest egg for yourself based on that inheritance can be absolutely huge and should be something that is done. But something that everybody should do are those four things. And then you can move into that place where you're really maximizing on the money that you've been left. Now, what about the don'ts? Okay. Don't become the bank for your friends and family. Okay, people, especially if you're left a large amount of money, people are going to come out of the woodworks, right? People are going to, and especially if they knew that the person who left you the money was very, very wealthy and had money, right? They're going to be looking for that money. They're going to come out of the woodworks and they're going to try to get their hands on whatever they can get their hands on, and they're going to give you every single sob story. Look, don't become the bank for your friends and family. Don't give loans to family members. Don't give loans to friends. Now, if you want to give some money and people need money, then by all means give, but give with no strings attached, right? And also don't be giving in a way where people just keep coming back to you and they become reliant on you to provide them money that was not earmarked for them. That money was not meant for them to manage. It was meant for you to manage that money. So don't become the bank for your family and friends. That is just huge. First thing right off. Okay. Then don't spend all of your inheritance before you even have it. The person you received the inheritance from worked hard and has now entrusted you with that money. So don't squander it, right? Don't just go and mentally spend it before it even hits your bank account. Okay. Actually have a plan. Now, when I say don't mentally spend it, I'm saying don't say mentally to yourself, oh, well, I need to buy a new car and I'm going to buy some new clothes and I'm going to buy new shoes. And, we're going to move out of this house. I'm going to put a down payment on a new house and all these spending type things. Don't just spend it mentally, right? But you can have a plan, right? You can have a plan for the money that you're going to receive, especially if you're already in a place where you have taken a breather and you've chilled out and you know exactly how to progress in your financial life, and you just want to go ahead and take the steps in order to do so. Basically, what I'm saying here is don't do anything stupid. Don't do dumb things with the money that you are left. Don't do things that would not honor the person that left it to you, and you will be fine. Okay? Then, don't do it all alone. Okay? It's important to learn. It's important to have people on your side that can help you. Okay. It's important to have people that you know that can help you out. I'm one of those people who can help to educate you and help you to learn more about financial things and help you to learn exactly how to go through dealing with an inheritance. If you need an attorney, work with an attorney. If you need, like I said earlier, an investment advisor, or you need an insurance agent, then get those things on your side. Get those people on your side, and not in a way where they're just going to make money off of you, but in a way that they can absolutely help you, and they can help you in order to maximize your financial life. So do not do it alone. Okay. An estate planning attorney and financial advisor can really help you to provide invaluable guidance to ensure you understand the nature and the value of your inheritance, and they can help you to minimize things like taxes, and they can help you to maximize the amount of money that you get to keep and what you get to do with that amount of money. But again, those people work for you. You call the shots. They do not call the shots. They help you to educate and execute. Okay, that is big, big, big. Educate and execute is what they're there for. Okay, then don't let well-meaning friends steer you toward risky investments. Now, in the same way that people are going to come out of the woodwork and want to get their hands on the money that you have been left, right? People may also come out of the woodwork and go, hey, can you invest money in my business? Or do you want to invest money in this or that? Or, man, I made all this money investing in Bitcoin, right? That's a big deal right now. As it drops precipitously as we speak, then that is, something that people could be like, oh, I made a ton of money doing this. You could do it too. Or this thing's going to blow up. Put all your money into that, right? Risky investments. And friends will, even well-meaning friends, will try to lead you into these places where they think you could really hit it big, right? But you may find that you're suddenly inundated with suggestions from friends, family members, and even coworkers about how you should spend and or invest your money. Always discuss investment ideas with your legal and financial advisors to prevent being talked into potentially risky investments. And then also, you should have an investment plan for yourself already. Now, again, if you're somebody who's very early on in your financial walk and a windfall of money is helping you to get a big head start, you may need to learn. You may need to bounce these ideas off of somebody a lot more than someone else. But especially if you're somebody who already has investments for themselves and is already working on the accumulation phase of their financial life, you should be in a place where you know how to invest, you know what you're doing, and you shouldn't be easily swayed by friends or family members or whoever trying to just talk you into whatever it is they want you to invest in. Okay, then don't go overboard with your spending and with your splurging. Now, I tell you all the time that if you have some unexpected amount of money that comes into your hands, there's three things that you want to do. You want to give, you want to save, you want to spend. All right, so I talked earlier about your emergency fund. I talked earlier about getting out of debt, right? And if that's all that your inheritance can do for you, then that's okay, right? But guess what you can do now? You can take some of your own money, some of your own income, some money that you can accumulate for yourself, and you can spend more of it. Right? You can do more things with that money that you wanted to do, things that are just going to be fun and enjoyable for you, right? You can spend some of that money. Now, I think any inheritance that you get, any windfall of money that you come across, you should give some portion of that windfall of money regardless of what you need to do financially, because again, this money was given to you to manage. It is God's money. It is not your money, right? So give some and be generous to others, and be generous in a way that you feel called to do so. But what you don't need to do when you come across some inheritance or some windfall of money is to really get caught up in any of the three sections of giving, saving, and spending far more than the other, right? You need to be doing all three, and you need to be doing them in proportions that align with where you are financially at the time, right? If you're deeply in debt and don't have money saved for emergencies and have no investments, right, then maybe a lot more of that money needs to go towards the saving and the paying off of debt. Maybe that's the case. Right? But if you're in a place where you have investments and you're building for yourself, and you have emergency funds and you have no debt and all this type of stuff, and you want to invest some of it, well, you can do that. But you should also enjoy a fair amount of the money that is left aside for you, right? And if you have that money, then just don't make it a situation where you are spending too much of it on yourself to where you're not being able to honor the person who left it behind for you. Now, again, I know that not all inheritances are really large. I know that most aren't. And I know that most people aren't going to be left anything substantial over the long term. But what I do know is that if you can teach your children this, right, and you plan to leave something behind to them, and you can teach them these things, these do's and don'ts of taking an inheritance, right, of receiving an inheritance, then they will be better suited in order to manage your money well. They will be better suited to do the right things when they do come across a windfall of money, even in a very emotional time, even in a time that can be full of these really extreme emotions that can lead people into depressions and anxiety and stress, right? Your teachings, the things that you have taught them, can be a guiding light as to how they go about their financial life. Okay, so help those around you who you're going to leave money to eventually to learn these things. And if you plan on receiving money from your parents or your grandparents or from someone in your family or your friends, then you need to know as well that these are the things you need to make sure that either you do or that you shy away from, that you don't do, right, to make the most of your financial situation, whatever your financial situation is, because each of these things, it meets you right where you are. Right? Regardless of where you are financially, all of these do's and don'ts, they apply. Okay? So just don't squander something that is left behind for you, right? Don't become a statistic to where, an inheritance was blown in such a short period of time, right? But do the right things, do the things that are going to help you maximize your financial life in the most efficient way possible. And I'll be right on board with you, because receiving an inheritance or giving an inheritance, neither one should be something that you're ashamed of, but you can end up being ashamed of it if you don't do the right things. So do the right things. Take these things to heart. Really, ask questions if you need to. Really, leave comments. Let me know, if there's things that I left out here, things that you think are really, really important to this particular situation, so I can better help to guide you and guide your family in that situation, okay? But regardless, I hope this helps, and I hope this helps you to understand what the intricacies of an inheritance are, and I hope to help you throughout the course of the rest of this week understand inheritances a little bit better. So thanks for watching this episode. If you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me feedback in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to respond to anything you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, be sure to subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out on the YouTube channel and podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you to create a financial plan that's specific to you and your family's needs and keep you accountable to that plan over the long term, then I can do that. Just go to my website, www.mnowithdylan.com. Click on the Work with Dylan tab, and you can choose the financial coaching session type that would work best for you, and we can begin pushing towards your long-term financial goals together. So tune in tomorrow as I talk about trusts and the part that they can play in your financial planning life in helping you to leave money behind for the next generation. So thanks for tuning into this episode of Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. God bless.